Have all of you with us this afternoon. Let's have roll call, please. And approval of the agenda. Do I hear a motion for that?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Please vote. And Madam Manager, I will turn it over to you.
Yes, I just have three short things today before I turn it over to Randy Gentry to introduce our speakers with NC Fire Chiefs Consulting. Before we get started, I wanted to look to my left and wish a very happy birthday to Commissioner Melvin McClawhorn, who is celebrating many years young this evening. So happiest birthday wishes to you. And then if Tim Corley would stand up or come forward, I just wanted to recognize Tim. This will be his last board meeting with you all. He is leaving us to become the manager in Beaufort County, and we wish him well in this next chapter, and he will begin there on June 1st. So this will be his last board meeting, and I just wanted to recognize him. And with that, I'll turn it over to Randy Gentry to introduce your presenters.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, Madam Manager. Long-awaited time to have this fire workshop. I don't know how many times I have mentioned to the fire chiefs and other firemen at different meetings since we set this date, reminding them that today was the day. So it is here. So without further ado, Greg Grayson with NC Chiefs Consulting is here, and he'll be doing the facilitator for this workshop. And Daryl Alford, I'm sorry, Wake County EM, and also responsible for fire services and EMS there in Wake County that have been through a similar process in the past years, but deals with it each and every day. So he came with Mr. Grayson. So with that, I'll turn it over to Craig.
And while they're coming forward, just to sort of set the lay of the land so folks at the front end know what to expect, we're going to hear first an overview from Greg reviewing what we've gone through in the report. Then there'll be an opportunity for you to ask any questions and discuss them. We'll turn it over for comments from the fire chiefs and from the individuals who are here who want to provide their feedback. Then you'll have an opportunity to wrap it up with further discussion at the end and direction, just so folks out there know your turn's coming. Thank you.
Very good.
Go ahead.
Well, thank you so much for having us with you here today. We appreciate it, and I want to sincerely commend you for taking time to look at this. I know the report's, large, has a lot of information, but to come back together and, debate some of the pieces and learn more about it and getting information, that's just excellent. And so you are to be commended for taking that route, and it's our pleasure to be here with you today. Daryl Alford is here with me representing Wake County. I asked him to join today, particularly with questions that you might have. Wake County has really, many years have been working with these types of systems, and I asked him to join just to help with questions today if needed. So we're going to go through some information with you today. We're going to kind of reorient you a little bit to some of the key issues that we talked to you about last time we were here. And then we're going to really focus on three pieces today and spend our time on those three pieces. When you have a big challenge or a big issue, what do? You break it down into components, and that's what we're going to be doing today, is breaking this down into several different pieces. I am with NC Fire Chief Consulting. We had the pleasure to assist you. We're the Association of County Commissioners Fire Consulting Provider, and so we appreciate the opportunity to be here in Pitt County. Your dedication to the people of Pitt County, we really commend that. We realize that you have a lot of duties and responsibilities, and again, you taking time today to do this and learn more about your fire service delivery system. Very, very much appreciated. You have a mantra, if you will, in Pitt County, and it impressed me and our entire team with this: leader in the state, best in the East. And so as we worked on this together, we kind of kept that in mind. This county wants to be the leader in the state and best in the East. What are the most optimal tools and methods and practices? What are best practices and what might potentially work here in Pitt County? So we really took that initiative that you have in your mantra to task, and it is reflected in recommendations that we made. So today, with your agenda at hand, we have a couple pieces. As I said, we're going to break it down in a few components. I'm going to do a real quick review of everything that we presented to you last time. We're not going into the details. We did that earlier, but I think it's important to frame that for you today as you start thinking about the three particular issues we're going to look at today. Kind of frame all of those that are out there. We're going to look at the principal components. We're going to look at the 12 core recommendations that's within the report and what the short-term recommended next steps was for Pitt County to consider moving forward. So we'll do a quick review. Then we're going to look at the priorities, some of the priorities today that we're going to look at our pieces around the service delivery model, the governance, and then some operational capability. Those are the three pieces that we want to focus on today, and we'll go into each of those with additional detail and examples as we go through that. And then we're going to be asking for some direction from you and questions, anything that we can help with. We're certainly glad to do so. That's one reason I asked Mr. Alford to be here and join with us, but some questions and also interaction. So I think those are the three pieces we really want to try to put attention to today moving forward. And so first, let's talk about the review. We want to look back in the larger report and larger review that we've been working on for quite a few months for Pitt County. We want to talk about the key pieces in that, just as a review and framework for the pieces we talk about in more detail. These 8 areas are the areas in which we did analysis and research and data. Your fire departments were very helpful in providing information. Your staff was excellent at following up and getting information that we need. But these are all the key pieces that we base the analysis on and base recommendations on, all woven together with what's best practice in North Carolina. So let's take a quick look at some of the recommendations and short-term next steps. One is funding and the funding model. We're going to talk about that today as you start looking at options and the future ahead. So we'll spend some time looking at the funding model. We'll also talk a little bit about the Fire Commission and how that functions and works. That's the second one of the 12. The third one was about having a fire administrator. If you put some of those other pieces in place, it may be an appropriate measure moving forward. And then we also talked about using a hazard and risk formula when you're looking at funding different departments that provide services for the people of Pitt County. We talked about a capital improvement plan. In particular, you have some needs as you have older fire equipment and some of the drivers across the state that are bringing counties like you together is, number one, changes in volunteerism, and number two, the cost of operating fire services. The significant cost that has increased in both apparatus as well as equipment, and so that capital improvement plan really becomes a key piece moving forward. And then retention and recruitment. We think this is key as well. You want to retain the volunteers that you have and work to attract new volunteers. And that's a challenge in all 100 counties. There are some departments that are having some success, but we don't have there's no silver bullet with that. It's a matter of effort and outreach, and we talk about some of those pieces within the study as well. Next is looking at some weekday supplement for your response. You know, you're responding today, Pitt County's responding as a system. That your departments are working together really well. They structure fire occurs, you're sending multiple departments from multiple locations, they're working together, they're responding and serving in a unified way, but the funding is not in a unified way. You're looking at individual funding across the county. And so a big part of that is staffing. And weekday staffing is something we heard from your stakeholders here in Pitt County as an area of attention. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that today. And going along with that, number 8 was looking at your service agreement. Your service agreement really is the guiding document in moving you forward in governance. It's a big piece you as commissioners have, and it's those directives your boards of directors and the contracting fire departments follow as well. So we provide information about that and some recommendations. And we look at the size of your county. You have a large county, but we do think there could be some opportunities for merger. We're seeing more and more of that across North Carolina as these stressors of volunteerism and stressors of cost are really prevalent for all the fire service. And then closest station response. This is not a standalone. It's connected with some of the funding models and some of those other pieces, but striving to get the closest station response. The good news for you as Pitt County is for your structure fires, you're already responding a number of departments to an incident because you're seeking to get the equipment and the personnel there as quick as possible. So you're really ahead of some areas. You have a great automatic aid response. But as we look at those, there are some opportunities, and we identified those in the study. This was 25-26, and so it's important to refresh your data, as you move forward. We're going to talk about 3 areas today that, we would recommend that you put attention to and make some decisions with because they affect the others. But one of those pieces is simply updating data as it moves forward because you don't want to make decisions in 5 years on data from 25-26. So we see that as being important. And this number 12 piece is collaborating with your fire chiefs. We had really good response from the chiefs. We went to every station. We looked at every piece of fire apparatus. We did get a chance to interact with your chiefs one-on-one, as well as we met with them as a group. You have some very dedicated, committed fire service leaders here in Pitt County. And so we would recommend as you make some of these challenges, engage these fire service leaders. And I think you've done that today by inviting them to be here to speak. And so hats off to you in doing that. That's exactly the type of thing we would suggest. We think you have key stakeholders that have input and recommendations that will be helpful to you as policymakers and decision makers moving forward. We offered some short-term next steps because it is a lot. What are some things that you want to look at more closely? Reviewing information, the manager putting together a task team of staff and fire chiefs to help move things forward and look at the alternatives, looking at the funding model. So we're talking about that today. And based on some of those decisions, it may trigger some other needs within your budget and within the county government. Looking at volunteer retention and recruitment, we don't think that can happen soon enough. Keep the people you have, work to attract new people to be part of the response system. And then the apparatus. In Pitt County, more remarkably, we've done these types of studies for over 30 counties in North Carolina. Your age of your fire apparatus in Pitt County rises to one of those things we need to flag. And we talked about that on our initial discussion. There's not a law or rule or mandate, but when fire apparatus gets 20, 25 years old, cost of operating it, cost of using it, the safety features that equipment has, is just not the same. And so not only has fire apparatus literally doubled in cost since 2019, but the delay in getting fire apparatus is 2 to 3 years for most departments today, if that. And so when you make plans and CIP and projections, well, we're in 2026. Well, we're working on something that might not even be produced and in service to 2028 or 2029 today. So we think that's important for you to have an understanding of. So having that piece is important. Okay. So that's a very broad, high level of, these are the 12 key things we talked about. These are a few of the short-term steps, and you're really touching many of those today. So let's look at some of the funding model. That's foundational. What type of funding model is best for Pitt County? And I wish I could come to you and say this is the ideal approach. The way we present this to you, say here are the options that you have. It's much like looking at flavors of ice cream, honestly. I'm an ice cream lover, so I use that example. But there are many pieces and ways. If you say, well, we'd like to look at a service district that encompass most of the county. Okay, that's great. Well, there's divisions of that. Do you want to have this model or that model? There's pieces. Counties can do what the legislature allows you to do, right? And so we have presented, here's what the legislature says you can do. Here's counties doing all of these different models. You just really have to decide what is best overall for Pitt County. And we make certainly some recommendations in that. Because of your need for capital funding, it is appropriate that a potential option could be looking at what we call an overlay district, or a way to fund equipment, facilities, large capital items. So that doesn't occur in every county, but in what we see with your age of your equipment and the cost and value, that is applicable in Pitt County. But let's jump into this and take a look at these pieces, and I'll go into more detail. So here's the ways you can fund fire services in North Carolina today. One, you can do a general fund. There's about 7 counties in the state that are using general fund. Most of those do not have municipalities, or very, very small municipalities. So that's one piece. That is a way that not many are using. Now, general fund may supplement in cases, and we'll talk about some more of those today, but for funding all fire services, not too many of our 100 counties are doing that. There are a number of rural fire tax districts throughout North Carolina. There remains that, over 600 of these in North Carolina. So that's a method, mostly put in place primarily in North Carolina in the 60s and 70s. My dad was a charter member of the volunteer department I started in, and in his era, that was really big. They put a rural fire tax district. It's outlined in Chapter 69 of the statutes, and it was put in during primarily that era. And so they're still in use today, and many are still in use today. Then there are service districts throughout North Carolina. That's another model. And I believe there's 13 different reasons to establish a service district, but fire protection is one of those that's eligible. So there are certain ways that commissioners can choose to put in service districts. Service districts are only enacted by county commissioners. In other words, service districts is not something that typically municipalities have the ability to do, because they're looking at larger areas. And so there's about 350 service districts in North Carolina. Some of those are countywide, some are geographical areas similar to what your districts look like today, and there's some that are what we call those overlay districts that help fund a specific piece of the overall cost. Service districts today are considered really the most effective tool. There's some pieces you go through about enacting them, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later today. But in enacting them, it's done through public hearing, and you're required to have a report to enact a service district. It has a lot of detailed information. It has to be provided to the clerk. It has to be published and made available. There's a very prescriptive process that you go through. So, but it is considered today, those rural fire tax districts were really considered back in 60s, 70s primarily as the best tool. But today the service district tool is in place, and most of the counties that we work with are working in that direction. So again, those can be individual, they can be a unified. There's about 15 counties or so that have some unified service districts. We'll talk about what that is, and then that overlay, which might be a way to look at capital for you. And then there's some local bills. And when I transitioned from being a municipal chief to doing consulting work, some for the state and then some for just counties and municipalities, I really wasn't aware of this model, honestly. But one of the first projects that I worked with was Brunswick County. And that takes me back a few years. Brunswick County, if you look at the news today, is working currently to get out of the model that they're in. They have a fee-based system in Brunswick County, and it's enabled by a local bill, and they're striving to go to something else for the same reasons that I'm here with you today. Changes in volunteerism, changes in cost. The cost of operating under a fee system is not working well for them. So quite a few years back. We did some work with Brunswick, and today they're still working on making that transition. Richmond County is one of those that is doing that as well. I'm currently working with them, and they're evaluating. They're kind of where you are right now. They're evaluating. I've presented it to them, presented their report and some recommendations to them, but they're looking at this fee model. Some of their counties on fee model, some of it is a service district. They've got some rural fire tax district. They have a little bit of everything, but they recognize what we're doing is not funding fire services, and we're looking to try to make recommendations that are all about service delivery. When people have, a fire crisis, a medical crisis, they dial 911, that they get service. And we're looking to make recommendations that make it a sustainable service. So is there a funding method that will sustain this service? And with volunteerism challenges and with cost of equipment, those are tough today. But those are the models. So general fund, rural fire tax district, service districts, and local bills. That's pretty much it. There's not other ways that you can do it. There can be some hybrids of these in different ways. As I mentioned, Richmond County is using several of them. But, as you're looking to try to elevate the level of service in the county, you're looking for service delivery. What can we do to best serve and protect the people and the property within this county? So I'm going to zoom in a little bit on eastern North Carolina, but just to orient you back to your mantra for Pitt County, which is certainly credible. There are some that fund general fund, primarily up in the northeast area of our state. There are about 254 of the rural fire tax districts. The average rate in the last published analysis was 8.3 cents per $100. Now that was a 23-24. We're working with the Association of County Commissioners for a 26-27. It's very labor intensive. We try to do that about every 3 years. So we're at the point with this new year coming that we'll be revisiting that with the NCACC. But the numbers I'm showing are the last analysis, statewide analysis of that. There are, in looking at service districts, there's some individual districts. Average rate for them 7.6 cents, and there's 3 that are countywide in those service districts. And then some of those that are local bill, but again, they're working on moving away from that model. So I pointed out at the bottom that those are a few years dated, but there's no more current. We will be working on that in July and August this year and updating it, and we'll certainly get that to your manager. This is just a visual of the last analysis that we did with this, looking at all the different pieces and parts. When you're looking at that number, over 1,000 fire tax districts in North Carolina, and collecting that data, it's quite a challenge. So we're going to be updating that, and we'll get that to you as well. So when you think about these service district pieces, municipalities are an important part of that equation. Municipalities, when you're considering a service district, can ask to be a part of that service district, no matter whether it be an overlay or more of a county-wide basis. They can ask to be a part. Service districts can't be the entire county. Something has to be excluded. Typically, that's municipalities, or maybe at least the larger municipalities are excluded. But you can't enact a service district in North Carolina for the entire county. Karen Malonzi, my friend with the School of Government, will say, well, you have a tool to do that, and it's called your county tax rate ad valorem piece. But if you're providing a service in a specific area, that's where a service district becomes really valuable. And so thinking about that service district piece, municipalities can say, do we want to be a part of this service district or not? They can bring that to you. You make the decision. So that can happen at any time. What we've seen in many other counties we've worked with is at the time you consider the service district, municipalities may want to join at that time. When you hold a public hearing, then you're holding the public hearing for all residents that are included, which could include municipalities. Typically, the municipality, the elected officials, adopts a resolution, and they send that to the county and says, we want to be included in this. And then when you advertise the public hearing and hold a public hearing, if you choose to do so, then the municipality can be a part of that if you want them to be. And so, again, there's not a mandate to that, but municipalities are an important part of this equation. So as you look forward, Is that something that you want to do or not? So throughout the state, when you have fire departments that service an unincorporated area of the county, Pitt County unincorporated, and they service a municipality, that is always a challenge. In Greensboro, we serve 3 areas of Guilford County, as an example. In Asheville, we serve 2 areas of Buncombe County. So, it's not unusual that municipalities service an unincorporated area and service a municipal area. However, it's important to look at the cost share with that. And we gave some examples in your report. Just pull one up as an illustrative example only with Farmville. The only model we see work across North Carolina with municipalities in this regard is to look at, well, what are we going to measure? What are the measurable pieces? And measurable pieces are specific to Pitt County because we're looking for what has there been good data on in the past, what is there good data on today, and what will there be good data on in the future. So things such as address points, valuation, those rise to the top. Maybe the square miles that particular department serves, that often is one of the pieces as well. And some look at responses that may be used, but that's probably one of the least that's used overall. We give some examples of that. And then to define, well, here we've got good data. Let's talk about address points as an example. So we've got great data through the GIS system. We know what's in the municipality. We know what's in the unincorporated area. And you take whatever data pieces that you have and you decide, well, these are the data pieces. Hopefully you and the municipality decide that you agree on that. And then the next piece is, well, what weight do we want to put on this? In your report, you're going to see we weighted everything equally. We looked at what data is there. We weighted them equally. That may not be the way that you want to do it. That may not be what your municipalities would agree to. So if you do have municipalities that are served by a fire department, maybe a municipal department, or maybe even unincorporated could be an issue. But what's the workload and cost to provide this service in the unincorporated area? What's the workload and cost in providing this in the municipal area? Without a formula, without a cost share formula, what I see across the state is that the municipality thinks the county's not paying their fair share, the county thinks that municipality's not paying their fair share. The only way we see this work is cost share. And so we give some examples of that. And that carries over, for example, or can carry over to capital equipment. If you have a need, what's the county's portion of this? What's the municipality's portion? But without a model, without a framework, it becomes really difficult. And we recommend that counties consider it also to be consistent across all your municipalities as well. So in looking at this piece, we could see also, while we talk about municipalities could be part of a service district, then municipality managers that are interested in being a part of this need to be in the discussion as well. And that may take some time to work out that data and the formula. We have presented a model to you in the report, but it's a very generic model because we put no weights on that. We provided really everything that there's data on. So you've got some pieces down the road to look at to make some decisions on this. So let's talk about where you are in Pitt County specifically. So you have very different amounts of funding for different departments, very different tax bases. The revenue is different. The debt service is different. The department's ability to replace equipment is different. Simply, some areas, most everything is based on a rate that you approve and goes into your budget, and the funding that department gets. So to work with. And so if they have more valuation, then that results in one, dynamic. If they have less valuation, it results in another. And so that's what we see, and that's not unlike most counties across our state. The average annual fire district revenue here is $253,000, but you'll see the range there too. There's a wide range. And so we often hear the term from your key stakeholders and fire chiefs, so the term being the haves and have-nots. And that just simply means that some districts have funds to work with more so than others. They all need funding, but they have different levels. Unfortunately, when you go to buy turnout gear, or you go to buy air packs, or you go to buy a fire engine, and you have those needs, there's not tiers there. You know, it's the cost of doing this is really the same for all. There are some ways to reduce that through group purchase or tagging on to other bids, but by and large, the costs are not so controllable. 18 of your 20 departments carry a debt service of nearly $10 million today, based on the data that they submitted to us. That's significant. We wish we could paint a picture that that would go down. We can't. That's not what we see. I think you could carry that same forward about volunteerism too, and the number of people that it takes to work with fire situations. And we wish we could predict something different there, but we would not be credible to you if we did. So we're saying to you that that's an area of concern, and we anticipate, based on all indicators, that will continue. Your staffing costs will continue to be a challenge. Your capital cost will continue to be a challenge. You've got 135 fire apparatus in Pitt County, distributed throughout all of your departments. You have your pumpers and tankers average 19 years old. Some do exceed 30. And I want to be clear again that we did some mechanical analysis for you. All that data is in the study, but there's not a rule or requirement necessarily. But I think the chiefs, when they, if you ask them, they would tell you the older a piece of equipment gets, the harder it is to get parts and pieces, and the more expensive it is to maintain. So that looking forward is something we think is on your radar. The consensus standard looks at really a 15 to 25 year life based on the runs and the use. But again, each piece has to look at individually, and fortunately you asked us to do that. So we were able to not only look at that, but then also look at what the needs for that particular district were through the lens of the insurance rating process, and said, okay, this is what you have, this is what you need. And that's outlined for each of your departments. So just a quick review of that, and this is just a lot of numbers together, and it's a chart from your other presentation, but some of the most impactful dynamics are the volunteerism and the cost increases that the fire service is facing. And I mentioned the have and have-nots. And so this is just a visual to show you that. This not only shows the funding, but it does show what the full-time equivalency of employees are today, and that's based on 2,080 hours per year. And then it also shows some of the insurance ratings. And you'll see, well, they vary as well. So the funding varies, the insurance ratings vary. Not that different than many counties are facing. But looking forward, cost of equipment and cost of personnel certainly should be on your radar looking forward. So we put some visuals together to try to help frame this for you some, and say, well, with your current system, if you were to look at an overlay district, or you were to have a unified district in the county of some type, what does that look like in terms of coordination and financial and operational? And so this visual is just to try to show you that. You do have some increased coordination does reduce some of that financial volatility. Well, what that really means, that piece means that as you're purchasing fire apparatus, being able to purchase that through a CIP, a constructed CIP, being able to bid that through the large co-op type operations. Houston Galveston Area Compact is one of those that many use. And then, being able to provide the funding. Counties often have the ability to fund some of this capital debt in a more efficient manner than each individual private nonprofit corporation can. And so that's one of those pieces why those three boxes move in the direction that they move. And then risk includes both spikes and reliability, because you want to have as predictable a system as possible. But anything can happen at any time. But part of that also includes insurance. And for example, making sure insurance is replacement today on that fire apparatus versus what it was purchased for. That's been a huge issue for quite a few counties across our state. So they purchased a new fire engine in 2019 at $600,000. They total that in 2025 for whatever reason, and now to replace that, it's going to cost $1.2 million. So if the insurance is only for $600,000, but to replace it's $1.2, they've got a big gap, and that's a huge number for many nonprofit corporations. I have a town I'm working with that's had that happen, and that's a huge number for them to gap. So making sure that insurance is to to help you manage risk and making sure that that's appropriate for the assets that you have. And these options just show you some alignment, that the different choices, put you in a different place throughout there. So we also had a visual here for you to see the operational, the planning, the structure, and what the municipal role would be. And these are just some terms that hopefully help you to see the differences between them. They're many times very close, but that level of funding, who's included, who's not, the municipalities, are they included, are they not? That's why I mentioned that earlier. That becomes an important piece. And if they're included, then how do you structure the funding that goes to that municipality in a fair and equitable way, a projectable way? The other piece I failed to mention earlier with municipalities, you have it in your study. We recommend on those cost share models, as an example, that you look at a rolling 3-year average. Why do you do that? Well, things can happen that can change the funding year to year. If you look at a 3-year average, then it lessens some of those spikes and valleys. The best example, that's the COVID situation. So no one knew that was coming. We're still working through that, right? But, we're looking at those years of what happened and those changes. The counties that have looked, like Wake, and that's one reason I asked Mr. Allred to join me today, those counties like Wake are using 3-year rolling averages, and they survived that dynamic of COVID because of that. Had they not, there would have been a lot of ups and downs in the funding level. So we think that's a great best practice. So we just show you some visuals here to hopefully help understand and digest that a little bit. If you were to look at changing your model from what you currently have, and you were to look at going to a unified service district across the county, or you were looking to move to an overlay type district with a specific function or purpose, July 1, 2027 would realistically be the soonest that could happen at this point, and on the timeline. There are a lot of pieces and parts, but much of which is working with your fire chiefs, much of which is getting your stakeholders involved and seeking compromise and working to implement that change. Your municipalities are a key player with that and implementing that piece and change. The state gives you some options. There is an option that most counties choose. I only know of one that hasn't. But most counties choose this option, and it's as you're considering establishing a service district. Part of your resolution is to say that you would set a cap of 15 cents per $100 for a fire protection service district. The statute enables that. If you choose to do that, then it tells you this is the path you go on, and that's where you would create a service district, but it would be capped at 15 cents. Doesn't mean you have to set the rate at 15 cents. It's just capped at 15 cents. That's what the statute says. The reason is, if you go back and look at the reason behind that, you go back and look at those rural fire tax districts. Some early ones were capped at 10 cents. Most in North Carolina are capped at 15, so there was a match for that there. And so the statute says if you're going to cap that at 15, the service district's really not all that different. It's more modern, it's more agile, it responds to today's world better, but the cap can be the same for both. So there's a whole provision in the statute that says if you follow this model, this is what you need to do. If you don't follow that model, then there's another path. And to my knowledge, only Buncombe County has followed that other path. But having served as fire chief in Asheville, I will tell you that there's a lot of challenges, not outside of Hurricane Helene. I was there yesterday working with a department adjoining Buncombe County. Outstanding, with what all they accomplished. But outside of a hurricane situation, the terrain and topography and needs of that area are significant. And so trying to provide equitable fire and rescue services in the mountains is a challenge. So Buncombe has departments that I know that are at 18 to 20 cents per hundred. So they didn't follow the model at 15 because they have departments that their rate is already significantly higher. Okay, so that's the only county that I'm aware of in North Carolina that has not followed pursuing a service district with a 15-cent cap. Most will just do the 15-cent cap and include that in your resolution. as I said, you cannot have the entire county. Something has to be excluded. Typically, we see municipalities that have their own fire department, and they're functioning well. They're not going to interact with that necessarily. There are some that have excluded some large natural area or state parks or national parks, taking some of those areas out, but something has to be excluded. And then, again, as I mentioned earlier, municipalities can ask to join that service district by resolution. And so there is work that's needed there. This is what you can do. Are you interested or are you not? Informing your municipalities, and there's pros and cons. And so just making sure everybody has the information moving forward. As an example, what steps do we go through if municipality wants to join now, but somewhere in the future they want to pull out and do their own? What do they need to know? This is what you could face. And do you have those kinds of cost share agreements set up that could be appropriate? So those are all pieces that take work, they take discussion, they take planning, they take meetings, they take coordination, they take a lot of compromise as well. So with that, we're going to break these up one by one. And so with that, is there any direction from you as elected officials on where you would like to move forward? One option, obviously, is a status quo. You keep doing what you're doing today. You are funding it. I would have to say to you, as you move forward, that funding level will surely need to increase. But you could also look at that overlay district that is focused on capital needs, as an example. Or you could say, no, let's move to a service district. So those are the options, and I'll certainly be glad to answer any questions you have about that, and just would invite discussion on any direction moving forward in that area.
Any commissioner questions or comments? Commissioner Manning?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It seems to me, that, since I've been on the board about a year and a half now, excuse me, the really big asks are capital needs, buildings, and maybe fire trucks. Mm-hmm. And we currently fund $25,000 per fire truck. That don't pay for the wheels. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking, at the very least, increasing the amount that we help these departments with to purchase fire apparatus. And then another, maybe a different method or something to help with construction costs, because that seems to be a big piece. I mean, I know our EMS building out some stuff, and when I saw the capital improvement plan a month or so ago, and an EMS station for over $2 million, I about choked. Mm-hmm. But those are the costs now. Mm-hmm. And so that's what a lot of these volunteer departments just simply can't manage that.
We agree.
So, I mean, I think the fire district, to some that we currently have, maybe they appear to me to be the revenue for some departments where there's a lot of exposure, a lot of property, and the tax district's bigger, they're better funded. Mm-hmm. But then the probably the lower third or so of the departments are struggling with the fire tax. Some may be, like Farmville's associated with a municipality. But so it seems to me there's going to be different things we do for the individual departments, but that overall funding for facilities and funding for fire apparatus seem to be the two big pieces that I think we need as a county, we need to help. So I'm not sure exactly what kind of district would be best for that.
Well, again, you've got options. You know, you're exactly correct. Your capital, you've got a lot of debt service right now. So today, your fire departments have a lot of debt of apparatus. You look at the amount of apparatus you have, you look at the age of apparatus, that amount will only increase. But trying to provide not the nice to have equipment, the must have, the gear, the air pack, the radio, the tools that your firefighters have to function. The cost of all that has gone up so exponentially. At the same time, many departments are needing to add some staffing. So I would be remiss not to say that, yes, you're exactly correct. I think what we're in in the shock phase of is the cost of equipment today. But looking ahead, sustainability, I would have to note your staffing needs and pieces will be a piece of that as well. Counties do it many different ways. I'll use an example of Cumberland County. I worked with them for several years to get to the system where they're at today. They have a system where they do have a unified district across the county. However, and their rate is set at 15 cents and has been for the last several years. But 10 cents of what their individual areas yield goes for operations. But they take the other 5 cents and it's a good for all fund. So technology, some of the equipment purchases, some of the physicals for firefighters, the radio communications piece, all these other pieces are part of the 5 cents. So there's just so many different models to speak to. They're in a service district, which is the same type of service district I'm talking to you about. But once you set that up, then there's many options, again, about how do we deal with that. But I will concur your concern about fire engines, fire apparatus, fire stations. Those are all very important.
And one other thing, are there any counties that blend some from their regular ad valorem tax with a service or overlay district? I live in the city of Greenville. We got a really good fire department in Greenville and EMS, and I pay county taxes. So some people will say, well, I shouldn't have to pay for those fire departments out in the county or whatever. I look at it this way. I go to Farmville, I go all over this county. The chances of me needing a rescue, a fire truck to help me if I'm upside down in a ditch somewhere is just as likely out somewhere else outside where I live. So I don't mind paying some that's just me.
Right.
As a city dweller paying county taxes. But yet then there might be, is there any models that blend part ad valorem, part fire tax?
Somewhat. So let me give you an example of that. Guilford County has been doing this the longest. I'm just choosing Guilford. There's other counties that do this. But Guilford County does supplement the firefighters that are responding from private nonprofit corporations. They have 2 separate squads of staffing. All of those staff, theirs now runs 7 days a week, 24 hours a day in two locations. They're all in county-owned facilities, county-owned equipment, and all the employees are county employees. So we'll talk about that model here in a little while, but that is a way that's general fund that is helping support the unincorporated area. But by the same token, if I was, when I served as fire chief in Greensboro, if I needed the rescue, they operated a rescue truck. If I needed that truck in the city, all we had to do is call for that, and it came. And they would stand by when our truck was down and things like that. So, you look for those areas where there's clean delineation, but it can go anywhere that people have helped to pay for that. I would say that's probably one of the most clear ways that I see counties addressing that is some functions or pieces, support pieces, could be through the county general fund, but most will be on service district, rural fire tax district, whatever model you choose to move forward with.
Right. Because I think most of the fire district taxes we have now, the property value and what I call the exposed property that they're protecting, the higher the value, the more money they've got coming in. So they're better funded than some of the more rural areas that don't have that tax base. So
That's the term we heard from your fire chiefs of haves and have-nots. So
Right.
if you don't have the tax base, it's a challenge. I mentioned Cumberland's model. Part of what they do with that 5 cents is ensure every department has a minimal amount. So in Cumberland, their amount's $250,000 for each department as a base, and then an additional $50,000 for every additional station they have. Gaston County has the exact same model where they look at a base for every department, gets $250,000. But if their district doesn't produce it, they pull it from the good for all portion of the funding, just to make sure they have enough money to operate. So that's a viable model as well.
thank you.
It is service district money, but it's a decision that the elected board there has made, that they want a substantial baseline for everybody in the county to have.
Thanks, sir.
Commissioner Weaver?
Thank you for coming out, sir. I'm for keeping the fire districts like they are. One of the things that I would ask you is, you talked about purchasing, because the Scott Air Packs or the Air Packs, they have a life, the equipment has a life, your fire apparatus has a life. I would love to know if there's a way, I know you can't do the fire apparatus as one large order because each department's got different sizes. Unfortunately, some are kind of bigger and some are kind of smaller, but for the air packs, is there any way we could get together with all the chiefs and say, you've got 4 that expire this year, you've got 5 that expire next year. Could we put together a large order and save money like that if we bought, say, if we come up as a county and said we're going to purchase 25 a year to get them caught up on a rotation to where, and put that money aside to where it doesn't come out of their fund, we pay for it and get them caught up? Because I agree with Commissioner Manning about the fire trucks. I know that we had to put $50,000 away to get our air packs up to, on their rotation, because some of them were.
Right.
And also a fire truck, as you said, if you put an order in right now and it's 900,000, by the time you get it, it's going to be 1.3 or 1.4. And $25,000, I don't know, rotate them, put new tires and balance them on there. But that would be one of the things. Is there a way that we could look at, get together and order large quantities of the air pack to try to reduce some of the cost?
Absolutely. So quite a few counties do that. It's got group purchasing, bulk purchasing. Not only can you do that for the departments that are needed within the county, but you also can include your municipalities if they're buying gear as well. In other words, you can put as much together as you want together. One department may want some different pieces of a spec on the gear than another department. But if you can come together and say, this is the general spec, okay, Department A can have these add-on features, Department B can have these different ones. There are ways to do that, and departments do that in North Carolina, and counties help do that in North Carolina. So we certainly give some examples, but not only the contracting fire departments in your county, but if your municipality's buying gear, you can look at when they're going to buy that gear, can that be expanded? But certainly, yes, there's a couple group purchase programs that many counties use and use it effectively to do that. So it does reduce cost. I can't give you a number today and from memory of what that looks like, but there are counties that are using it, and it does reduce cost.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Brown, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the answer on funding for me is answering the question regarding how much actual coordination, to piggyback off of Commissioner Weaver, on ordering in bulk, basically, how much coordination is necessary to protect the equity of each individual emergency service line with actually over centralizing the support. And so for me, that would be the answer, to address clearly only what is the challenge. I think not doing anything is not the answer. But since I don't see anybody lit up red, I personally would like to hear from them before I personally answer any further. So
Understood. Yes, ma'am.
just say that.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
thank you.
Commissioner McGlohorn?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sure you had conducted a lot of these feasibility studies throughout the state of North Carolina. How many counties within the state has adopted this plan, and what have been some of the pros and cons behind this?
Okay. Let me call Mr. Alford up. I want him to share a little bit of background. So there are quite a few counties in the state that have a what we would call an overlay district. There's quite a few counties that have a county-wide service district. So we have both, quite a few. I think I had some of the numbers in the slide. There's quite a few, and you can look at them by Piedmont Mountains and also east. But that is, it's been pretty predominant for the last few years. There are quite a few that have been there. It is a transition. It can be a lengthy transition. So Wake County adopted their unified service district back in 1998, and it's really still evolving. So, Mr. Alford, I'll ask you to come up and tell a little bit about that transition for them. That is their model, and it doesn't apply to everybody. But I think with your question is, what are the pros and cons with that? There are pros and cons, and some of that is among the the perspective that you look at as well. As he comes up, I would encourage you, we always try to look at the perspective of service delivery, no matter what that is. People who are dialing 911 and need help, what does that perspective look like? And that being said, Mr. Alford can speak a little bit about Wake's model.
It is a lot to unpack when you're first looking at this. And in Wake County, our Board of Commissioners, as Greg said, back in 1994, 95, started talking about what does equitable service look like across the county. Should a citizen, and I'm going to use the Wake County names because I don't know all your departments, but should a citizen in Hopkins, who's the most ruralest part of Wake County, get the same response time and the same amount of people on a scene as a Northern Wake Fire Department, which is one of the most affluent parts of Wake County? And that's really what the commissioners looked at, is they believe that the citizens should get the same service and that the men and women of the fire service should have the same gear. Not exactly same name brand, but somebody at Hopkins shouldn't wear gear that's 12 or 13 years old, and everybody at Northern Wake has a brand new set of gear. So it was about that balance of doing everything. And I would say for y'all, the most important thing before you make a decision on any of this is to make sure that these folks right here are on board. Because I tell this a lot, and I tell this to our Wake County commissioners, they represent your communities out there. They are the hub and the base of all your citizens in the community. And they can make or break what happens in Wake County and in Pitt County. So they need to be on board. And I think every one of them would say that they think they deserve the same gear, and I'm just going to use Greenville, that the Greenville Fire Department wears, and it should be replaced within a 10-year cycle, which is what the standard says. They shouldn't have air packs that are far greater than 15 years old or 2 NFPA cycles. They shouldn't be driving engines or tankers that are more than 20 years old. So, if I'm sitting where y'all are sitting now, I take a good hard look at this and I make sure that they're on board because it's about equitable service to the citizen and providing the same level of protection and equipment for these men and women here to provide the service to the citizens. And I'll be glad to answer any questions. You had a great question a while ago talking about the equipment and the cost of stations. Man, I wish we could build an EMS station in Wake County for $2 million or $4 million. I'd jump for joy. So I'd be glad to take any questions.
Any questions?
Can I clean up one part I heard of Greg's earlier? If you're looking at the service district and your municipalities want to get in, one thing that you need to understand and that the municipality needs to understand is if they join this service district, you as the County Board of Commissioners are most likely then levying the tax for fire service. And I'm just going to use Farmville. If Farmville's out of their budget, their fire tax, if you do all the math, has been 2 cents per 100, they're most likely going to want to reduce that 2 cents back or use it for something else because that is your job then. You're levying the tax for fire protection.
Greg, do we want to take a minute and hear from our fire chiefs and see what kind of comments they have?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll open up the floor if we've got any chiefs that want to come up to the podium and make some comments about anything that you've seen in this. We'd love to hear from you. And don't everybody jump at one time. Come on up.
Eastern Pines Chief Gary told me I need to get up here, this is my 53rd year in the fire service, by the way. And the changes and stuff that you're seeing and we're seeing now are here for many reasons. A lot of them's been discussed, a lot of them's been put up. But some of the most important decisions that are made is how we continue from here forward. We're where we're at because of how we've operated in the past. We're where we're at because we've always been set at a level that this is where we need to work in and our budgets are adjusted to do so. It doesn't work the same for Clark's Neck as it would for anywhere else, because they're all different. They're all different makeups. There's a lot of key points that's been made in this presentation, but one of the things that sticks in my mind is I've probably got one of the oldest pieces of equipment in a brush truck. It's actually a military X vehicle that was put into service, because I just cannot buy a $100,000 truck and put it in the woods. It don't make sense to me as a chief of operating areas. And we actually operate two of them. I've got a 78 brush truck that's got 7,000 miles on it. Why do I need to replace it? Yes, the chances are something's going to happen. But I don't know if you look, but how's your new car that you bought 2 years ago? Is anything happening to it? You hit the key, doesn't mean it's going to always crank. You don't care what you buy. I just want to make sure we're not jumping out here and saying everything needs to be replaced because it's old. I wouldn't be here. And it's important to us. I think the key things that I'm looking for is, yes, we're falling behind. And that's why we give the information we've given to you guys, is so you know where we're standing. We struggle every day to make calls, and they seem to be more and more often. What we're responding to has changed because it's gone more from the fires to more assisting motor vehicle crashes and all this kind of stuff all over the place. So yes, it's very important we're doing what we're doing, but at the same time, we need to keep some common sense about where we're headed and what we do. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So he talks about age. I guess I'm the oldest chief out here, but I'm one of the more blessed chiefs that I have a more populated area, so I can do more than some of them. But then at the same token, I'm in a bad place for 10 years down the road with Greenville taking a lot of my territory out back, because a lot of the farmland, they're putting developments in it, putting subdivisions in it, and when the city takes it, they don't give me for it for what it's worth when they build a house on it. They give me the farmland price for it. For an example, when they took Sagewood at Hollywood Cox's Crossroads, I did the paperwork on it. I got $67.80 for that territory. As they take, and of course right now, a lot of you know, they're going down 43, they're going down Mills Road, and they're eating us up. So, you know, right now I have a good budget, but I don't know what it's going to be 5 years from now. So I have to prepare now and get what I can with what we got. The older trucks, my oldest truck is my cheapest truck to operate. I spent with servicing it and everything last year and putting tires on it, we spent $5,400 on it. But then my newest truck last year cost me $180,000 in breakdown fees because I had to put an engine in it. So just because we have newer engines doesn't mean it's going to help the cost of it. So, you know, I've got my 97 truck, cheapest truck I got. So replacing it? No. That's money we don't need to spend. But at the same token, I'm putting money back so that if something happens to that truck and we need to replace it, we've got it, because right now I've got 2 trucks that will be paid off in 2 years. And so when that money quits being paid out, we'll still put that amount of money back, so when we need to replace that truck, we'll have the money. But, you know, I look at the departments that are not as blessed as we are, they need help also. But of course, manpower is something we all have. Right now, we've got 24/7, one person on a shift, and our goal in the next 2 years is to go to 2 people per shift. But, we always looking at other ways to get extra money, so, I'm talking with the city now that maybe we can do some contracting with them on some of this territory they're taking. But, the main thing is give each citizen in the county the same service. I mean, that's what we all need to do. So, I want to see a way that the less fortunate departments can get help, but at the same token, I don't want it taken away from me or from my district. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you coming out. Commissioner Weaver?
She was first.
Okay, Commissioner Huggins.
Looking around the room, I don't think we do, but I'm going to ask the question, do we have representation from all of the stations? Okay.
Commissioner Weaver?
Chief Dixon, you can stand up too, Chief. I've got a question for you too from Bethel. Mr. Lilly. Chief, what's your average response for volunteers at y'all's department? I know for Clark's Neck and Bethel, I'd love to know when an alarm goes out, how many people that are volunteers without from another agency, from your agency can respond, Chief. Chief Lilly also, sir. I'm gonna make you walk, sir.
I need to exercise. We just went through a reevaluation at Clark's Neck, so I've got these numbers fresh in my mind. We're at 10.34 total time from time it's dispatched to the time a truck arrives on the scene of structures. And structures is really the only thing that kind of goes into the counting mode for ratings. We've been always blessed. If you look at some of the list, we had 42 volunteers when we went through putting the numbers in. We've always maintained somewhere between 35 and 40 members with us. We are total volunteer. Usually, our minimum numbers that we'll have show out for any call is 5 head, and we have put 21 on the scene of structures. So, again, we're very blessed. It doesn't happen every day because it's just like, where were you yesterday compared to today? We're the same way. The thing that has changed is we're no longer farmers. We have people that are working. And there's a lot of things that we can do to help ourselves in volunteerism. One of them is start appreciating the volunteers and trying to help those. There's many ways of doing that, and I'll be glad to give you them.
Good evening. Chief Thomas Lilly, Bethel Fire and Rescue, also a commissioner for Bethel. I don't really know the actual time. I do know that it's a 4-minute between setting the alarm off and one time. We, 99.9% of the time, we have a truck en route within 4 minutes, because very seldom do they set our alarm off again. Just like this morning, we had a call mutual aid to State House at 12:30, 1 o'clock. We had 2 people. I was able to get 1 truck out, and that was it. Well, basically, I'm sorry, 2 trucks out. But my average time for call response is pretty decent. In the daytime, I have 1 guy and me. That's all I have in the daytime. If we have a call, basically from 7 to 4. At nighttime, I might get a response of, depending on the call, 4 or 5 out of 27. That's what's on the road. So.
Thank you, Chief Lilly. Thank you, Chief Dixon. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Any other comments from any other fire chiefs? Glad to have you come up and say a few words.
I'm not speaking for the chiefs, but back to Commissioner Floyd Huggins. Currently, there's a fire on the south side of the county. There's 5 departments there now. And I'm not saying those chiefs would be here, but there could be some that were unable to come because they are out fighting fire.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that.
Mr. Chairman, I do have, I don't know if the ones here would answer this question or not, but in the presentation, I heard fire administrator, I heard merger, and I'm just wondering what's the feeling, what's the thinking of that, of the chiefs? Anybody want to speak to it?
I'll just stand over here. Well, 53 years in fire service, you go through a whole lot of different things and ways of looking at different things. Yes, there's mergers that should probably take place in locations, but when you start looking at mergers that are already set up in districts, what have you changed? If one department takes in the two neighboring departments, what did you really change? You still got the distances between them. So mergers, yes, there's some that are in close proximity, but when you're already at your 5-mile rating for insurance purposes, what are you going to change by merging? Don't have any issue with merging. It's a good thing to do. It shares the resources. It helps those that maybe are in areas that aren't functioning. But there's a lot of things that can be done that doesn't include doing away with districts that are already established. And your other point?
Fire administrator. Fire administrator.
Fire administrator, and the other key one was the fire commission. We've been there. I don't want to go back there. We've got a fire commission for our department that's been in place, has been working good. I'm not for 3 or 4 people picking what everybody does. That's not mine. I think we're capable of performing.
So if you had 3 items that you could pick that you would like to see this board do, what would those 3 items be?
Increase funding, help in any way we can do. You know, grouping stuff sounds good on the surface, but you also got aspects of differences in preference. Okay? Not saying it's bad, good, or indifferent, but that's what makes us who we are. If not, we'd all be dressed in blue when we come in here tonight. But we can't do that. So the 3 things that I would say is funding. We definitely need to look at that. We have had the mindset more of not spending when we've got things that are working than let's be proactive and kind of put it up enough that we can do that. The other would be assistance with building, if that is a necessity. And, you know, when you start looking at age, and I've been a lot of things over the years. I've been fire instructor. I've been a little bit of everything. When you go from a municipality station who is running trucks to death every day to a rural department that runs their trucks 2 or 3 times a month, and you're using the same evaluation numbers, that's where we're at. I've got a truck that's got 7,000 miles on it that's 20 years old. We have certified mechanics that come in annually and do service bumper to bumper. We try to stay on top of making these trucks last. It's my upbringing. I was raised in a farming. You use everything you can use until you can't no more. It's nice, money's good, building help, but basically it's focusing everybody in the same path that we need to go.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate that. Any fire chiefs want to add to that? Yes, sir.
I'm Chief O'Neill with Bellothan Fire Department, and I think you said three big things that we needed. Obviously funding. Equipment as in stations, engines, tankers. I do like a model that Wake County and Johnston County formulates, that they set a standard for a truck. That standard can be purchased through the county or whatnot. If the department needs to adjust it, it comes out of the department's budget. My needs is not the same as Clark Next or Eastern Pines or Fountain that's sitting here, Bevel. We all have different needs for our areas. Along with that, when we start talking about group purchasing of turnout gears and air packs, air pack standardization will benefit this county. One air pack across the county. For when we have those Mayday situations where a firefighter's down, we don't train like a municipality does. If we can train on one air pack, say it's a Scott Survivor, MSA, whatever it is, we know what to do with that person that's down and that air pack. Versus you showing up to a scene right now and you can have 3 different air packs. I may not be familiar with most of them. Some of them, yes. Turnout gear, we can play around a little bit. Turnout gear is always evolving, just like fire trucks. It needs to be evaluated every couple of years. The biggest thing that I would probably say that every one of these chiefs are is in the fire service, generally, we do not like change. Change is unavailable. It's going to happen. It needs to happen for the good. We're here looking for a change to better assist the citizens that we serve. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you coming out. Commissioner McGlowan?
Just one final question. How many people, volunteers on your staff, do they get paid anything? And what are some of the problems in retaining volunteers for your fire department? And what do you think you can do to improve that?
Good afternoon. My name is Jonathan Landon. I'm the chief for Fountain Rural Fire. Do what? Fountain, yes, ma'am. So he asked about the payment. We currently received a grant from FEMA 3 years ago now, and we do have a stipend for our firefighters when they respond to calls, but it's nothing compared to the time that's put into it. I believe there's several departments in here that have also received the same grant. I know Bell Arthur, Red Oak. I'm not sure about anybody else. But that's the only compensation we get. And when the grant runs out, that's going to end. And you asked a while ago about the 3 things. The biggest one is funding and capital improvement plan, which is what everybody else has said. And just helping with manpower. I'm in Fountain. Well, Thomas might be a little bit further out. We're probably the furthest one from the city. So during the day, we have less manpower than the other departments. We get, I say, 7 on scene on average at night. During the day, it could vary. We may get 2. We may get 5 or 6 because most of my guys work and they work shift work. So if we're lucky and they're off of work, we can get a good turnout during the day. But it can be that we have 1 or 2 people that show up during the day for calls. So for me, they mentioned that there's some counties that provide a support unit. I think it was Guilford County, you said, has 2 trucks that responds to calls. Even closer to us, Edgecombe County does the same thing. Edgecombe County has a fire engine that is staffed sitting in Charborough that responds to every structure fire in their county. When you're dispatched to a structure fire, you get yourself, your automatic aid departments, and that additional engine or tanker, depending on how you have it set up. I can speak to that because we also contract with Edgecombe County. So if we have a call in our district in Edgecombe County, that engine is also coming to assist us. As far as I know, that's the only one here in the east that does that. It was brought up 4 or 5 years ago. The idea was brought up here and was kind of shut down because, let's say, like Chief O'Neill said, firefighters don't like change. But, and y'all talking about mergers earlier, when you do the mergers, you have to worry about egos. I know my department's gonna probably be one of the ones that merging would be on the table for. If you look at the numbers, we have, I think we're the third lowest tax base in the county. If you look at how much we bring in, and we operate on less than $100,000 a year. And our ISO rating, to me, is comparable to anybody in this county for what we do. So that's just my opinion.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you coming out. Commissioner Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 2 more questions if anyone wants to address this. I've had some wonderful conversations with a lot of you regarding over-dispatching, as well as the volunteerism in our high schools has declined rapidly and drastically. So if we have a manpower shortage, why do we have such, in the data, showing over-dispatching? Can anyone explain that? Maybe that's where the merger would be a good, yeah.
Can you define what you're calling over dispatching?
Yes.
Multiple stations showing up to one.
I'm okay, but come on. You gotta go there. I'll let you go first.
So there's a lot of different things that we do. We don't do just fires. So when we do go to fires, I think typically right now, correct me if I'm wrong, we're typically 3 or 4 departments for everybody. 3 or 4 departments. That's bringing our equipment, our water. A lot of us in the rural areas, we got to bring our own water, and manpower. Insert any department today, he might bring 5, I might bring 20. Flip the roles in 4 hours, I might have 3 and he might have 10. That's why we're sending multiple to structure fires. The other avenue that we have is Pinions and 587, Highway 11, MLK, 13. When we're getting those calls, it's not just us popping a door anymore to get somebody out. We're really having to sit down and dismantle this car. Comes into more specialized equipment, more specialized training. When you're dealing not with 1 vehicle, you're probably dealing with 2 to 4 vehicles. So right now on 587, I've got 2 other departments coming to me. I'm bringing 2 rescues. EMS is bringing 2 plus the supervisor. We're bringing a lot of resources to get the task accomplished. We don't know what we're getting to when we get there, but we're going ahead and dispatching these in certain areas that we know are high probability to save lives. Just like I'll stand up here right now, there's not a chief here that has been sitting here over 20 years that would tell you when they started in the fire service, they never thought they'd put up a smoke detector in a house. And now that's the service we're providing daily.
Thank you.
Y'all asked about manpower or over dispatching. That's the chief's discrepancy, how many departments are dispatched. I can speak for myself. I chose to add a 4th department. So any structure fire in the Fountain Fire District, there is 4 departments being dispatched. Chief O'Neill, I believe, is the same way because we're the 4th department. I can't speak for everybody else in the county, but that's up to the chief. I did it because I knew we needed the resources and the manpower. And you asked about volunteerism. In the high schools, we actually work with the high school we work with Farmville Central. We had 3 members that went and presented to they have a public safety class. We had 3 members that went and presented to their public safety class 3 weeks ago, the week of the Dogwood Festival, so the last weekend in April, trying to help with recruiting. I pushed hard for a junior program 7 or 8 years ago, probably about 6 or 7 years ago. And at one time, we had 8 juniors. Now, I think out of the 12 we've had go through our junior program, all but 2 are still in the fire service, and one of those 2 is enlisted in the Air Force, and that was why they got off our fire department, was when they left to go to basic training. So I think being present and letting people know that volunteers are needed, because a lot of people just assume that all firemen are career firemen. Because your bigger departments, you're in like such in Wake County or the city of Greenville, they are careers, so people don't realize that they can volunteer. So that's the biggest thing. We did work with the North Carolina Association of Fire Chiefs and the PIO for Pitt County, worked in conjunction. I'm a former president of the county association. When I was the president, we received a grant that helped with recruitment and retention. And we worked with Dawn hand in hand, sending out flyers. We all had banners. She was, and she still has access to the Facebook page for the county association. So we are actively trying to recruit, but I think the biggest thing is people not realizing that volunteers are needed because they think that it's career, because they pay a tax and they think that tax covers, they don't know the other costs associated, so they think when they're paying their fire tax, it's covering career firefighters.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Weaver?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll get somebody up here to answer this, and I just want I want a down-to-earth question. How many times does your agency respond for lift assist that's nothing to do with the fire, but it is for medical services to assist? And I'd love for y'all to do that. And my next question would be maybe not so much to the fire chiefs, but to Matt and maybe the county manager. I know a long time ago, and I'm kind of old, like Sheriff Manning said here, the fire departments used to charge for materials they used at a wreck scene, like stay dry and mess like that, and it got done away with. Now, I'm not saying make $1 million on a wreck scene, but it's paid by the insurance for the motor vehicles that are involved or people like that. And I would love to see them where if a bag of stay dry, they used a bag of stay dry, or they had something, they'd be compensated back for the material that they use at those scenes. And that would be something, I don't know how we need to do it. I just think that I can see them not making a ton of money, but I can see them if it costs $20 that they spent, that comes out of their budget, that they get reimbursed by an insurance company for that $20. And I'll turn it over to you and if anybody else. Thank you, Chief.
I'll speak to that first and foremost, because that's been brought up. When Ms. Gallinger was the county attorney, that was brought before the county commissioners. And it is actually in our contracts with the county that we cannot charge, because there's a general statute that limits the ability to charge for that. And there was an addendum added to our service contracts with Pitt County that prohibits any nonprofit department from charging. The municipal departments can charge inside the city limits, but they cannot charge in the unincorporated area.
Thank you.
And what was
Thank you.
You asked about EMS. I'm waiting. I'm gonna speak. I'm also a member of the former fire department. Chief Brady was unable to be here because he is out of town on a pre-planned vacation. He is watching online, and I've texted him. He's texting me back. They run a high percentage of the EMS calls. He's texting me the number of what percentage of their calls are assist EMS, because I know you asked about that. I can speak for Fountain versus Farmville. Farmville runs several more EMS calls than we do. And of course, he sends me a graph. I can't read it. So they ran 400, I think it was 450 calls last year. And of their 450 calls, it appears that 120 of them were EMS calls. So a fourth of the former fire department calls, if I'm reading these charts from Chief Brady correctly, were assist EMS was 500. In the past 5 years, they run 531 assist EMS calls. And I don't want to speak for Chief Brady, but if you'd like a breakdown, he can break it down to what they ran in town versus what they run in their rural area. He has all that broken down. But over the last 5 years, they've run 431 assist EMS calls. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
for myself, I don't see that I could make a decision as to where we would go, which type of service we we would do at this time. And we got the feasibility study, we've had the presentation, and I'm going to put this suggestion out there for commissioners to consider, is to appoint maybe 4 commissioners. I'll say 4, I won't say 5 because that would be majority. 4 commissioners to work with the county manager or her designee, along with a group of the chiefs, to kind of hash this out a little bit more. It's
Well,
just a suggestion.
Well, I know we've got some more presentation. Craig's not finished, but we had a bunch of fire chiefs here, and it was
I
getting
mean,
later,
and-
so we wanted to give them an opportunity in case
Yeah.
any of them had to leave.
Yeah, and then bring back some options, maybe, kind of narrow it down some. To me, right now, we're all over the place.
Craig, let's kind of go back where you left off.
No worries, no worries.
Go ahead.
All right, sure. So let me just give a couple brief comments for response, Chief. I want to be very clear, and you see this in your report. Multiple departments responding is a best practice. That's a good thing. You would not see the ISO rates you have in this county if you weren't doing that. That's a positive. That's not an over response. That's a needed staffing response. So let's be real clear about that. I don't think we use any term of overstaff. It's just you need multiple departments to get enough people to do the work, and I think I'll show you that here in just a minute. So they're exactly correct, if I may reiterate that. So the second piece of this that we were asked to talk about today is a fire commission. It really depends upon your decision on the funding model. If you look at best practices across North Carolina and what's worked well, counties that have established a service district engage a fire commission. It will include the people you heard speak today, your fire chiefs, fire service representatives, geographical areas of the county are often most represented, and the most successful ones include a representative or a liaison from county commissioners so that they understand what needs and issues. Because if with all the different departments you have and they all have needs and there's funding, there really has to be a way to filter that back to the full board. And that's really the function and outcomes that a fire commission can have. Certainly don't have to. It's no mandate to that. There's no statute. It's just a best practice. So fire commissions, I listed some items here that are the purpose, and that is they are an advisory board. The Board of Commissioners has to adopt a rate, or they have to assign funding, or you got 5 departments that need a fire engine this year. Who gets that one? Our capacity is only 1 or 2. How do you do that? What do you work through? How do you work through the data? That's the type of piece that the Fire Commission often is involved with. But the most are made up of fire service representatives, a liaison from the commissioners, and some consumers, if you will, or residents in the unincorporated area that are served, again, representing geographic areas of the county. So this list of purposes there, and then the commission representative, we think that's really important. Some have a member of the Fire Commission as a commissioner, some just have a liaison. And so it really depends on how you want to structure it. But the idea being they're advisory to you. They give input very similar to what you're talking about there. Tell us what the recommendation is. Help the entire board to make a decision that maybe some of your commissioners, there's no limit to 1. We just said that's a thought and recommendation to you. So these are some typical functions of a fire commission that we have here. And this chart over on the right-hand side is just illustrative. It's just, I took one commission and said, okay, this is who they make it up with. But the idea that you get, that you see is there's fire service representatives, geographical representatives, residents who are paying fire tax or part of that, and a commissioner liaison in some way or a commissioner member, and they are advisory back to the Board of Commissioners. And so we want to mention that and go through some of those pieces today. We've got a chart here that hopefully will help you to think through that some, looking at what types of functions they might have and some questions you might have. I know we don't have a whole lot of time with that today, but those long-term capital investments often are leaned on Fire Commission to help with that if you choose one of those funding models that's a countywide service district or an overlay district as an example. So it's really dependent, if that's the model you choose, one of those models you choose, a Fire Commission can play a positive role in that, or they are for other counties. Is it change? Yes, absolutely. But these are some of the areas in which may be help or consideration moving forward. With that, I'll be glad to take any questions on the Fire Commission piece that you have. Any questions? Okay. The third area that we've talked about a couple times and mentioned is the staffing piece. And so in our report, you'll see that weekday staffing, we heard a lot about the weaker link is just weekday staffing. You have a wonderful volunteer service. You have tremendously dedicated volunteers. No dispute in that whatsoever. So the challenge in Pitt County that we have heard in other counties as well, but what we see is, if you're a volunteer, you can't give something you don't have. If you're at work and you're not here, you can't respond to a call. The days of employers, even locally, letting people leave and go to a structure fire call, unfortunately, have come and gone. I grew up in a mill town, and it was very different back even in the 80s, time period. So, but that's very different. Volunteers can't help if they're not there. So we heard a lot about weekdays and some of the needs and stresses in weekdays. So in your report, we talk about, well, what have some other counties done? We talked about the model, Commissioner Manning, we talked about that model of staffing. If you used your general fund to do that. And so several counties have been effective in doing it. So I have a Guilford County unit here, but they have a large rescue truck and they have a smaller rescue type truck. They don't operate pumping trucks. Edgecombe, as he mentioned, does, but most do not because they're just a staffing supplement. They're not replacing any volunteer. They're not replacing any fire department. They're just coming to help on significant calls. That's not limited to structure fires, as the chief said. That can be a motor vehicle collision that's complicated. It can be hazardous material related, whatever that might be. Guilford uses general fund monies to provide 724-365 staff to do that. Some counties, though, start out looking at weekdays and having a crew in weekdays. Cabarrus County, they have moved theirs now to a more of a 724, but they started weekdays. And does this work? Are we providing a benefit? And so I think that's the question. Foresight does that as well. So in Foresight, they use an overlay district to pay for that. They choose to use an overlay district to pay for their supplemental staffing instead of their general fund. That was their choice. But Guilford pays with general fund, and so does Cabarrus as examples. And so we just say to you that weekday staffing, we heard very much is a piece that needs some help. You're sending a number of departments today. That's a best practice. There's no way you could achieve the excellent ISO ratings that your departments have achieved without staffing. Staffing's 15% of your overall rating that's conducted. So staffing's a big part. But the weekday part is the portion in the study that we just say, this deserves another look. These are the different ways and models that you can use to do that. Let me be real clear about staffing. There is no law about the full number of people needed on a structure fire call. There is a law that's very clear that says that firefighters can't enter a burning structure unless they have a rescue team. You send people into a burning structure, it's identified as immediately dangerous to life and health, meaning that you can get killed inside. So you have to have a rescue team to get them out in case something goes wrong. And so that there is a law with that. There is a provision if you have a known rescue that you can enter, but if you don't have some substantial reason to believe somebody's inside, then you have to wait on additional people to arrive. And so I will be clear, this is the only legal requirement. But I think the chiefs in here would say to you that may be the legal requirement, but we try to show you as well on a working structure fire, it's very labor intensive. It takes a lot of people. It's very hard work. And we've been having these 90-degree days this week. Well, they're going to get hotter. The hotter the weather, and more difficult that it is on the firefighters physically, psychologically, everything else. So while the minimum is really 4 firefighters, you can see many more are needed to do the work. And the way you're accomplishing that today is multiple fire departments coming together. Remember I said you are responding as a system, right? That's good, that's great, but you're not funding these departments as a system. So when one department comes over to help another, that other community's funding that. The other one comes over here, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, but I want you to make sure you understand you're functioning as a system, but you're not funding as a system. And so the same number of people are needed, no matter where they're coming from, whether you're, wherever you're at. And this is based on a small 2,000 square foot house, meaning the larger you get in buildings or commercial buildings, the more people are needed. This is a consensus standard. And so it's not a law, it's not a requirement. This really comes up when somebody gets hurt or injured, or there's more property loss than insurance company thinks that there should be. That's where that usually is surfaces. We looked at your community as the unincorporated area is mainly rural. You have some that is suburban. This is the schedule that we use to do that. Again, it's not a law. It is a industry standard called a consensus standard. And so, again, not mandated, but we just show you where that comes from, and it's measured at the 80th percentile. That means 8 out of 10 times this is the level of service that the people in your county are getting or receiving. And so, when you look at that time, your time is really good. And I think one of the first chiefs spoke about that. He's exactly right. When you look at 8 out of 10 times for Pitt County, from that 911 call to the first truck arriving on the scene is 10 minutes and 29 seconds or less. You can do a quick look at the rural area, and they're looking for 6 people in 14 minutes. You look at the suburban area, the standard looks at 10 people in 10 minutes. So you're doing really well with that piece. The part that we could not track with the data we had was being able to tell how many people arrived, and neither can many counties do that. So we're able to get the first truck, but we don't have a time capture or a way to say, well, when did you get 8 people there? When did you get 10 people or 6 people? We don't have that piece. But we listened to the fire chiefs about their challenges, and what they told us was we are stressed weekdays, and our system is stressed weekdays. We did a pretty thorough analysis of your staffing that you currently have through the county. That's the chart over on the left-hand side. It's called Staffing Heat Map. This is the level of paid personnel you have based on the information that your department's provided. But the one on the right says, well, this is when the incidents are occurring. And so that weekday piece does present a challenge. We looked at the highest 8-hour period is 11 a.m. to 7, and the highest 12-hour is 9 to 9. But again, that falls into weekdays, right? But there are some hours afterwards. But many of the chiefs did report that they do have volunteers responding, especially with multiple departments, and can help cover that with volunteers. But they consistently told us weekdays is a challenge, and we hear that from others as well. This is just a visual to kind of help paint this picture that reduced weekday availability. If the volunteer's not able to respond, they can't respond. And so that's just reality. So the counties that have stepped in with those programs that I mentioned, those are trying to address the gap. They're trying to address, well, how do we help cover this? One of the greatest challenges in hiring firefighters today is having some type of retirement system. So one of the reasons those counties use that and driving many of the mergers we work with across the state is people trying to be able to be in the retirement system. We regret to say that they can't in a private nonprofit corporation. They have to be members of a municipality or a county to be in the North Carolina Local Government Employee Retirement System. We call that ELGERS. But in order to be a part of that or have that retirement, which also has important death benefits, the departments can't put their people in that model. So that's one reason some counties have chosen for these supplements, and I want to emphasize that word, it's supplements. It doesn't replace anybody, it just supplements. But having a crew arrive and be able to come in and help support the people who are already there. And so this just hopefully helps paint a picture. You're looking to fill some of that gap. And again, just a little bit more information about the dispatch unit arriving, and then what some of that variability is, and then what that staffing helps to bring. And that last word, I think, is some level of consistency. But you also can have, multiple incidents occurring, you can have a storm occurring. It just brings a higher level of consistency. It doesn't fill every gap, and I'm going to be very clear about that. It's just a tool, a model. We're presenting that as a suggestion to you. It may be something you want to embrace, and it may not, but we present that as being effective in some other areas. And we give some examples of others that are working. Most of these counties started this weekdays, and then they eventually expanded it over time, and so those are just a couple. And with that, I'll be glad to take any questions on the supplemental weekday staffing.
Any commissioner questions? Okay.
So you've heard from your fire chiefs, you may want to hear more, but the three areas we've talked about and focused on is that core funding model. That really drives if you need and have value in a fire commission. And then the piece for staffing, while the funding model may really focus on capital, the fire engines, the facilities, the renovations to facilities, all those things that are capital related, the staffing still is an important piece in the puzzle of providing fire protection in most any county, including Pitt County. So, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you want to have other chiefs come up and discuss any of these others.
Any chiefs have any more comments on any of this? We're here. We want to hear you. Yes, sir.
Hey, I'm Mike Brown from Red Oak. Now, first off, I'm not the chief, so I need to tell you that.
That's okay, that's fine.
But, and I need to say, so this is my personal opinion, and let me just say a couple of things. I think certainly you've identified the three top things we need to try to address. And as most of my compatriots there said, funding is clearly an issue. And that funding isn't just for new trucks or new equipment, but it's also for debt service. We have a pretty high debt service right now, and I think we really need that. Just a couple of comments, though, in general. I had what I now consider the privilege, but before it didn't seem that way, of being a volunteer in a system where the county took over, and I hate to use that term, but it did. Fairfax County, Virginia. 1966, I became a junior firefighter and was a firefighter there till 76, I think. And we hated it. We absolutely hated it. We didn't want it to happen. I think that we could learn some lessons from that. My fire department is still a volunteer fire department there. Never would have thought that, but it is. We need to find some balance between what they use the term, I think, uniformity. Is that what you used? Uniformity, but allow for individuality. And I think all of us want to improve. All of us want to be able to know that the things that are important to our department, we can still continue to do. And you've heard that from some of the folks there too. I'll give you one example, medical calls. My department is elected to be a first responder department. We go to every medical call in our fire district. We want to do that. We think that's important. All right, so other departments may not want to do that, and I think there has to be room for us to be able to make some decisions about that, I think. For example, individuality. I think that some of it's going to be then the balance of implementing structure on all of us from, with allowing us to participate in that too. I think that if we do a fire commission, there has to be representation, and I'm going to say this, and I hope it sounds all right, but I think us commission members would want the commissioners to listen. And so that would be an important piece, that they would be a two-way street between the commissioners and any fire commission that we have. One other thing I wrote down about retention of volunteers or recruiting volunteers, it takes a lot of training to be a fully qualified firefighter. I think it's 260 or 280 hours now. We are lucky, I'm going to just put a plug in for Pitt Community College, that in the past several months they've really ramped up the training availability for our departments and really worked with our departments on that. that's going to be really a plus for everybody too. But that's a lot to ask for people before they can be a fully trained person to go through. So something for us to think about on that too. And again, there are going to be some thorny things here. I don't like the word merger. I don't know if mergers is the right word, but there are some spots in fire districts where, in my fire district, other fire companies come within a mile and a half of my fire station for calls. Well, those are things that we're going to have to take a look at, and as Chief Arnold mentioned, we're also on the other end of the city, where the city is annexing a great number of our properties. So there's a lot of things that we are going to need to consider as we go along. I think, though, we all want to make good things happen. I think we all probably at some level realize that the second part of what they said is firefighters hate change and they hate things being the same. That's the two part of that, right? Okay. But I think we all realize that we want to do some things differently. How do we find that right balance between structure, between whatever, and our individuality? Say one more thing. There are a few of our fire departments that are working together on shared standard operating procedures, so that we know that if we're the second arriving pumper truck, this is what we're expected to do. And I think those are other ways that a lot of us would be glad to work with our adjoining departments on, trying to standardize some aspects of how we do things that are more effective and more efficient too. Thank you for letting me speak. Not the chief.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments. Of the folks that are here today, how many would like to see a fire commission? Raise your hand. That's what I thought.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Chief Lilly, I think I remember seeing a sign in Bethel one day saying firemen needed, or I think you had a recruitment sign, did you?
It's still there.
How long has it been there? Did you get any takers or have a spark of an interest? Not just for him, but if any of you've done it, I'd like to see if you've.
I've got 3 firefighters out of it.
What period of time? And you're still advertising?
Probably a year and a half.
And you got 3?
I'd like to address that too, if I could.
Yes, sir.
That has been a very productive campaign, and I'll have to take my hats off because a lot of people were involved in that. Emergency management here, Randy and his crew, they have done excellent stuff, getting it out, getting people seeing it. It's not only in Bethel. Those signs are posted all through Pitt County with everybody wants these snap phones and it takes you where you need to go, it grabs you, it puts you to your fire. I mean, it is actually wonderful. So that portion is still in place and it's still going. It's not as visible as it was when it was kicked off. But my hat's off to the people that made that happen. And I know there was a lot involved, and I don't want to just call a few names, but hats off to emergency management for what they did in that part.
Okay, thank you.
That was a great program. We actually got some junior firefighters out of it also.
Well, it sounds like that's something we need to continue to do and maybe more of it.
I was curious because I hadn't heard any results out of it. And I was curious if you got them, and he got 3. And he's way out there.
And Dawn presented all the
We've actually used Randy's lighted sign to put in Bethel for a while, since volunteers needed. I've asked Jay about it, and Randy let me do it for a while. So we've actually done that for a while.
That's teamship.
I'm gonna keep the old theme. I'm old. So I think it was 4 years ago that it was a joint effort between the Emergency Management Office, the Pitt County Fire Association, and Pitt County PIO. We all came together and contributed funds to kick off that recruitment campaign. And as a part of that, we purchased, had signs made up and put, made available to every fire station in the county to put out wherever they wanted to, mainly in front of the fire station for recruitment. But at the same time, Dawn did a wonderful job through social media, creating a campaign, and it's still running today, where there's a QR code that people can snap and then fill out the information, and all the emails of interest saying they want to be a junior fireman or a fireman come to our office, and then through Jay Marsh, our fire marshal, he farms them out to the appropriate fire station based on where they live or what they're close to. We have a lot of people that are residents of Greenville that want to be a volunteer fireman, so he will connect them with the closest volunteer to wherever they live geographically in the city, and make the connection with the fire chief. But that's ongoing today on all of our Pitt County social media, and the fire departments that have their own Facebook pages or whatever, they can continue to use that QR code to get that information connected to the right chief.
Thank you, Randy. Commissioner Manning?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to make a few comments. I think, number one, for the Fire Commission, what I heard or what I think I envision here is that is as much a core group of subject matter experts and commissioners to advise this board on what direction we need to go, not necessarily to tell fire departments what to do or what we want. I don't see that as being, because the whole merger question, that's up to the departments. I don't want to take it personally. I don't want to take anything away from the individual command and control of all the fire departments. If there's a merger, that needs to be between them, neighboring departments. If they decide, hey, it'd be an advantage for us to merge, we'll support them in that. I don't see anybody from the county level telling somebody what they need to do. And certainly there's some cross-jurisdictional things that when Mr. Was it Boyd from Red Oak? Brown, right. I was actually sitting in front of your fire station a few months ago when a Greenville fire truck went by. So there is cross-jurisdictional issues as the city of Greenville grows, and that may, at some point, you may decide it's better for you to merge with another rural department, and whatever. But I just want to make sure that I don't feel like we're trying to act like Big Brother here and tell people what to do. I think what we're trying to do is figure out how the best way we can do to help. And I know my experience, I was a volunteer years ago, fire and rescue and everything, and in my town we had paid firemen, and there was just a few of them back then, but they handled most of the calls, which was a great relief. On the volunteers only got called out when you had a working fire. So we weren't constant every time the whistle sounded. In fact, they finally quit blowing a whistle in our town when we had pagers and stuff. But the paid men handled most of the stuff, and we didn't do fundraisers. I know some of these departments, they work hard raising money with barbecues and everything. My department, the county and the town we didn't do fundraisers when I was there. So the things that can maybe take some of the pressure off of the volunteers, not having to go out and raise money. I mean, I lived out in Eastern Pines for a while. That's some of the best barbecue. Them guys know how to cook. They cook so often out there, but taking some of the pressure off the volunteers might be one way of getting more people willing to volunteer. And then supplementing that weekday, like you said, having people there because most of our rural communities have dried up. I mean, it's just a fact. They're not big, when I was young, take 12, 15 people out there putting in the barn in the back there, and now it takes was one or two. So the people aren't out there in the county working, they're coming into town. And so you just don't have the volunteers there during the day. So I see that's the three things back to, help and supplement paid firemen during the day in the various stations to give them a break and provide good coverage during the weekdays, helping with their construction and helping with the purchase of their fire trucks. I see that as things that we can do, but I think a commission would be, the purpose is have some folks together to recommend to us exactly how to proceed. Is that, Mr. Grayson, is that kind of where you're looking at it?
Sure.
Thank you.
You are correct with that, and let me call Mr. Alford to talk a little bit about that role of that fire commission and clarify it. Again, most of the time, the fire commission comes in place when you do a service district or an overlay district, or you're needing to make decisions as a board. So, Darrell, if you'll speak to that.
So I'll give you an example of one of the things that the Wake County Fire Commission does is they meet, and it's a representation of fire chiefs, past Fire Chiefs Association president, and then 5 or 6 citizen members that are elected from, or y'all actually appoint, or the Wake County Board appoints. But one of the things they bring to y'all is like redistricting. So and in Wake County, we do closest station response. So if there's a new station built, it goes to the fire commission first, because that's the litmus test. Is we go through all the redistricting there. We show the parcels that are moving from one district to the other. Is it changing ISO grades or anything like that? That way, when it comes to y'all, it's already been vetted by the fire chiefs. You have the chair of the fire commission comes up and says, fire commission has looked at this, and we're okay with this, because as the board of commissioners, you have to approve the redistricting. So it's really the litmus test before it gets to the board of where they can have an opportunity to hash things out, talk with citizen reps, subject matter experts, and do things prior to it getting here.
Any other commissioner comments, Commissioner Weaver?
I would, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Speaking with several of the chiefs out here, and several of them that are not here, my understanding is they're not for, and I want y'all to be honest, this is time, right now is the time to stand, you're not for a commission, correct? So, I mean, in everyone I think I spoke to, I believe out of 19 or 20 fire chiefs, I think I may have had one at the fire meeting said that they would like for a commission to come in. And again, I'll just go back to it. I think that they know each other, they can work it out, and if we need to go out and talk to them, and I know we can, I'll go out and talk to them again. If there's certain individuals, I think we can bring it back here and work it out. That would be my suggestion on that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other comments down there? Okay, Craig, I'm going to invite you back up just for closing comments and maybe next steps and your recommendations.
Absolutely. So we do appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today, and I think you're talking about these issues, and I really appreciate you asking for the fire chiefs to offer their opinions. I started with a term, it's all about service delivery. Fire service exists to help people in their time of need. I'd like to close with, it's all about service delivery. You're the elected officials for this county. All the fire service in an unincorporated area falls to you. The ideas, concepts, and recommendations and report are an effort to move that forward. They all aren't going to fit. But what we clearly heard from every chief is we need more funding. The model we're using today won't sustain what we're doing. And I think the data supports that. So as you make decisions moving forward, there's lots of options. We'll be glad to help and work with Ms. Gallagher, Mr. Gentry, any way we can to show them other counties or examples or models. Anything that you want to do, but moving forward, looking at other options that you have just really is a necessity moving forward. So that's pretty much it. Service delivery is what it's all about.
Well, thank you. We appreciate all the work you've done on this. We appreciate all the feedback from our chiefs, our firemen. Thank you so much for coming out today and giving us that input. And please don't hesitate to call us if you have more. What's the pleasure of the board? I mean, I think we've heard a lot. There's a lot to, so to speak, chew on and think about. We could put this on a further discussion for an agenda item June or July. And Madam Manager, do you have any comments in closing?
No, only further direction that you might have. We can put it on for further discussion and direction. We had initially talked about this as sort of coming forward in 3 segments. The first was just the presentation of the report, the second being today, a little deeper discussion and listening, and then coming back to let us know where we go and what that looks like. So I'd be happy to put that on either at your second meeting in June or your meeting in July for further discussion after you've digested what you have.
Commissioner Weaver?
Mr. Chairman, the next chief meeting is the June 18th at Simpson Fire Department. And I'd love to have that meeting and have them discuss some things and get back before we have a meeting up here, if I can make that.
I would
Thank
say that'll give us everybody an opportunity to look at it a little deeper, and we can put it on a July agenda.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That's satisfactory to the board.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, this is dragging on for me. I filed to run for county commissioner in December of 2024, wasn't it? And the next morning, my phone rang at 9 o'clock in the morning. It was Mayor John Moore in Farmville wanting to talk about helping us fund the fire department in Farmville. So I've been listening to this for a year and a half and talking to firemen, and it just seems like we're dragging on. I want to move on it and get, I like I say, I don't want to. We're not here to try to tell fire departments how to run their business, but there has to be some coordination here to move forward. And I mean, the new budget starts in just a few months. I was hoping to get something going, in the new budget year that we could start helping these fire departments. Because like I say, I mean, I'll be off the board by the time we get anything done at the pace we're going. But anyway,
Well,
just to keep it
If there's
moving.
one thing that I've learned in 24 years of being an elected official, the wheels do not move fast.
I know. They're just not moving fast enough.
I
for me.
wanted them to move a lot faster 24 years ago when I started too, and it don't work that way.
But I do think, I do think as far as the commission, that's as much something for this board to have, not so much to, I hope the chiefs and all come around to thinking that, I just see that as being an advantage to have a commission that is an advisory board to this board for some expert analysis and stuff, so forth. So anyway, we'll move on as fast as we can.
You could put that into a motion.
And I'll make a motion to formulate a advisory board. Is that what you're looking for?
I'm saying you could certainly make that motion. I'm not going to agree with it, but
Well,
'cause I don't think that's what our volunteers want.
Well, I don't think,
And we got, I'll be honest, there's a board for everything. I get tired of boards.
well, I understand.
There's a commission, there's a advisory board for everything under the sun, and quite honestly, I don't ever see anything accomplished.
Well,
Just my take.
right. And I just see it as being a way to consolidate and get the ball moving here. Because I don't think, anyway, we'll move forward at the pace the manager recommends. It's just not moving fast enough for me.
Understand? Well, I mean, my thinking is to charge Janice and staff to bring back a funding mechanism that is better than what we have. Maybe some different options that we can look at to move forward, to fund equipment, to fund, I don't know, maybe there's some way to help out with the stipends, or to fund facilities. So maybe staff can get together, look at that, and see where we can go with that. Commissioner?
Well, what I suggested earlier is somewhat what you're just saying, but maybe Commissioner Manning or Commissioner Brown, who's the vice liaison, I mean, to work that out and as to an options, that on funding and staffing or whatever that is, kind of narrow it down so and bring it back to us. That was, you know,
Okay.
'Cause
Well, if
right now,
everybody's
it's-
in agreement
it's-
with that, well, Janice, you can do that.
I can, yes, if you want to do, if you don't want to call it a fire commission.
No,
really
I just
have
said-
the purpose that Commissioner Manning talked about, but include commissioners and staff. We can pull that discussion, we can pull that group together to bring back recommendations
yeah.
for your discussion in July.
And, Madam, that's why I wanted to meet with them in June, all the chiefs, because most of all the chiefs will be at the chief meeting and go ahead and discuss this. We already know what the major funding or the major implements they want, how we can go about
Yeah.
helping them. I
Yeah.
think that's great.
Yeah, funding,
Yes,
the model funding, and even sustainability. These are, he talked about three,
Yes, ma'am.
you know, three pieces there. So,
Do we have commissioners that would like to volunteer to serve on that committee if you want me to pull that together before the July meeting?
No, sir.
Commissioner Weaver said he'll serve on it, Commissioner Brown.
Ann? Were you suggesting or no?
I was suggesting, maybe Commissioner Mann.
I'll be glad to.
Okay.
Could I make a recommendation that we meet with the chiefs at the Simpson Fire Department on that day of the chiefs meeting, June 18th, and set aside about 30 minutes? If y'all, I'll speak with Chief Mayo at Simpson to let us have about 30 minutes to get everybody's talking points and what we need to hit. If that would be all right with the board and Mr. Chairman.
Do you
I
want-
mean, I'm fine with that, but I think they've been clear on what we need to do.
Right.
I just think it's within us,
Right.
in Janice and her team to pull it together to see what kind of funding options we have moving
Oh,
forward.
I totally agree with you, Mr. Chairman, yeah, on that part. I'd just love to see, because we don't have, I'd love to have some more chiefs here because we have a lot of chiefs here, but, you know, Gardnerville's not here. We don't have, like he said, some of them are out. Some of them may need different items to take priority over certain things, over some of the other chiefs.
I think number one priority is gonna be more money.
Oh, yes, sir, absolutely, but, yeah.
It's just me, which model are we going to use in that funding? Yeah.
Which one benefits them? I don't have a problem in meeting with them next week or something like that with the county.
No, I mean, I think that's fine in June. I think your recommendation will work, and then we'll put it on the July agenda to have some discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Also, I think it's really important that we look at, if there is no commission, what is the policy structure in place then to get their communication to us long-term in a very fair and equitable way? As much as I appreciate the liaison that would sit on that board currently, whoever that is, we have to think 20 years down the road and how that's handled in a very structured environment that's fair to absolutely all of them. And so, as much as I can appreciate them not wanting a commission, that's great. If that's what they don't want, then that we hear that. But then if staff could maybe say, okay, here's some structure to continue to hear all of their feedback, not just a select few, I think that we need to know what that will look like.
And the
Okay.
only other thing, Mr. Chairman, and I know we're over time, but I'd love to hear any feedback if there's appetite for an additional tax to support the fire service, whether that be a service district tax, an overlay district tax, or if your mindset is that we are funding from existing or general fund revenues. I think that if you have any thoughts on that before we meet as a committee, I think that's critical. I don't want to bring back a funding model that the majority of the board has no interest in increasing a tax.
I think we all pay enough in taxes, and I'm not interested in taxes going up for anybody, but that's just my 2 cents worth.
Okay.
But the question was out to you guys. So would you all entertain some sort of tax increase?
That means y'all gonna answer to the people.
I mean, my opinion, like everybody else said, but I mean, I think us, when we're getting down to the nitty-gritty like this, we need to have a sit down amongst ourselves kind of iron out what's the best, what the associations and things are best for us, and then come back to y'all. So
I understand.
instead of, you getting several major
Sure.
different things from each one of us, and they're like, again, my opinion only, for that as far as what we're doing.
I agree. All right,
Got it.
that sounds good. All hearts and minds settled. All right, I'll entertain a motion to dismiss. Thank you all for coming out today.
Second.
Got a motion to adjourn and a second. Please vote. Thank you.
And building families is the pursuit of places that promise stability, growth, and ample opportunity for the future.
One of the reasons that parents are leaving urbanized areas to come to Pitt County is because of the